Hi, I am Chef Bricia Lopez, and you're listening to Ingredients Insiders.
This is Ingredient Insiders. I'm John Magazzino.
And I'm Andrea Parkins.
On each episode of Ingredient Insiders, we will be talking with chefs, cookbook authors, and food lovers about their favorite ingredients.
We will then speak to the producer of that ingredient. We talk about the history, how it's made, and why chefs love using it in their kitchens.
Today, we find ourselves in beautiful, sunny L.A., Los Angeles, Andrea.
I love LA, and when I think of LA, personally...
I love L.A. Yeah, I love L.A. too. What do you love about L.A.?
I mean, the weather is just always gorgeous. The people are beautiful. The food is absolutely delicious. I'm obsessed with the Santa Monica Farmers Market.
Yes.
I mean, the produce is just, incredible. You just don't get that in New York.
I agree with you on every one of those things. I love the restaurant scene here, but you know what I really love about LA?
What do you love?
Amazing tacos and amazing Mexican food. And today's guest, Bricia Lopez, who's the author of a book that just came out called Asada, The Art of Mexican-style grilling.
Yeah, this is her second book.
And yeah, another book, which I love. I have a copy of it. It's called Oaxaca. She is really one of the foremost experts on Mexican cuisine. And we're going to talk about mole today.
I really enjoyed researching for this episode because I'm just going to be honest with you, John. Obviously I know what mole is, but I didn't realize there were so many different types of mole, and that, depending on where you are, where you're from, you're adding different ingredients. It's really an interesting sauce, and it kind of reminds me, a little bit like, your grandmother's tomato sauce recipe, right?
Very personal.
It is very personal.
A lot of different things used in it. We're going to talk specifically about the dried pepper component to it. Bricia I can't wait to talk to her. I have not met her, but she's this very dynamic, beautiful person with this great family story.
She grew up in the industry.
Yeah.
Her father opened a restaurant. So I want to hear kind of how she, got to be where she is today.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all things mole with Los Angeles' own Bricia Lopez.
And then we're actually going to be speaking to Krissy Scommegna.
And Nacho Flores.
Yep. Krissy was on before, good friends from the Boonville Barn Collective.
Yep.
And
they're pepper growers.
They are.
Nacho's a pepper farmer, originally from Mexico himself. And, these are the folks that make our amazing California pimentaville. They also grow all of these different varieties of peppers associated with Mexican cuisine that are dried and used in mole.
Let's talk all about mole, John.
Hole mole.
This episode is in partnership with The Chef's Warehouse and produced by Gotham Production Studios in New York City.
So we are in downtown East LA, let's call it that. And we're at this...
We're not in downtown.
Okay, we're in East LA.
Yeah.
We're at this amazing warehouse production facility where you're making these amazing michelada mixes. And you have this beautiful mole base
starter
for everything. For those of you who don't know Bricia, she is a Mexican chef. Oaxacan, okay, not even Mexican. Let's go Oaxaca. And you came to the United States when you were very young.
10
years old. All right, give us
such
your
a cool
life
story. Your dad was a mezcal maker, and you kind of brought that here.
Here's the story. Early 90s, my father was in the mezcal business in Oaxaca. He had a mezcal store, which is one of the first mezcal stores that opened in this town called El Tule. And he used to make mezcal with his brother. Early 90s, the economy of Mexico collapsed and there was a money devaluation. So one day you had 100 pesos and then the next day you had one. Like crazy. And he was a merchant, so sales and selling and buying of goods was not good for someone, who was owed money and had money owed to him. completely lost everything. This is back in, again, early 90s, before y'all New Yorkers were drinking mezcal, okay?
Right.
This was
We
not-
didn't even know what that was.
No.
We knew tequila. That was about it.
Yeah, no, mezcal had not reached Brooklyn,
Yeah.
nor Williamsburg. So it was not the thing to drink.
Yeah. It wasn't cool.
It wasn't cool. So he just didn't see a future in that business and decided to move in order to provide for his family of 4 kids. So he had a sister that lived here in LA, and he moved here. He was going to move here for about a year to figure it out. And during that year, my mom would go to the market. La Central de Abastos is a huge market, outdoor market in Oaxaca, the biggest. That's where really all the merchants gather. So my mom would go. I remember going with her. We'd buy everything that we can think of, from chocolate and mole, bread, chapulines, moles, the mole that you see here. Then we'd package it up in boxes. We'd go to the airport. She'd ship it to Tijuana. My dad would then drive to Tijuana, pick it up, drive back to LA, and they would just go all around LA without Google Maps, okay? With this Tom Bradley. This is not Tom Bradley. Tom's Guide? I don't know what that. There was a there's a book.
That map.
Yeah. Oh, like MapQuest?
No, there was a book.
Girl, there was no internet.
What was it called? The Scott's Guide? The Tom?
I think it was like the Tom.
There was this like map book.
Yeah, it's like a map book. So he had like a book that had the map. He did not know how to speak English. And he just drove around to find little pockets of where the Oaxacan community would live. Because usually if you found one Oaxacan, you would find 100, because it's like
the community.
The community.
Sure.
Right. So he's trying to Google it. See, he didn't have that. He didn't have Google Maps.
No,
he just
and
figured
I'm trying
out.
to look up what it is.
I think it was called Tom's Guide. I think it's a Tom's Guide.
Thomas
Guide. There it is. So okay, Tom. I know.
Thank you, Andrew
Thomas-
Steelman.
Yes, the Thomas Guide.
It's like Tom Bradley's the
Our
airport.
amazing photographer.
So this was his MapQuest.
This is his
was
map
his
quest.
ways.
His ways, right? He would just get his Thomas Guide and he would just find the Oaxacan communities.
I can't imagine life without Waze.
And then, or internet for that matter. And then, I would say a few months after he became a street food vendor, he would sell food in the streets at nighttime. And then saw a place that was for lease. Again, this is without him knowing a lick of English, okay?
And how old are you at this time?
At this point, I'm about 9 years old, but I'm living in Oaxaca still. My dad opened the restaurant. I'm going to just breeze through it, because if I get to details,
but I
it's a
love
lot.
this.
No, this is like such a great story.
He's, for the survival of your family, he's
For survival,
come
100%.
to where his sister is in LA, and you
Like,
guys
no money.
No, and he's surviving on what you guys are sending him to sell,
And he's sending us money to buy stuff. So whatever he would make, he would then send the money, wire the money to my mom. We'd get the money with everything he would make, buy more products,
Yep.
Get it to Tijuana.
send them again, and he would do it all over again.
I mean,
Your
it's an
parents were
amazing.
like a partnership, like a true partnership.
Yeah.
All right, keep going,
figured it
because
out.
I want to hear more, because
And
I know
figured
this
it out.
keeps going.
It has a happy ending. I'm still here. I'm still selling Oaxacan products. So then we moved. So then, anyway, so he opened the restaurant. And then after 3 months of it being open, he realized, oh, this is working. The people are eating here and I'm making money here. There's cash flow here. There's a way to make money here.
Was he doing cooking as well, or no?
He had hired somebody.
He hired somebody.
But my
to
mom
cook,
is an amazing cook. So he was like, okay, so you need to get here and bring all the labor with you,
Yeah.
the 4 kids. We moved here. I remember crossing the border. We all had a backpack because, we were coming. So then we had to bring product. I forgot. I think I had the backpack with cheese. My brother had a backpack with clayudas. My sister had a backpack with mezcal. And even the young, she was 1 year old and she was probably had like bread in her bag or something. Like we were coming, but we couldn't just come empty handed. We had to come with food. So my dad picked us up and he had bought himself a car, which was crazy. Here's the thing about it. It's crazy because if you're living in Mexico in the early 90s, there's no way out. Like there's no way to escape poverty there.
You had nothing.
There isn't like a pathway to even come to par. So for him to move to another country and to see there's actually a way to make money here, it just blew his mind. Like I can buy a car here It's crazy. You know, in Mexico to buy a car, you know what the interest rate is to buy a car in Mexico?
What?
Like 45%.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. There's no such thing as credit in Mexico still. Like, it's wild.
What did you feel like?
Well, I was 10 and I was raised in Oaxaca, and I was raised like many kids, watching TV. But I grew up watching Saved by the Bell and Full House,
Of course.
obviously dubbed. And I would just look at this like, oh my God, like I want to live. I want to meet
You want to
Zach
be Kelly
Morris.
Kapowski.
I want to I want to be Kelly Kapowski. I want to date Zach Morris. And I just want to see like the beach. Like, oh my gosh, there's a beach in Oaxaca, but we'd have to drive 9 hours to get to the beach. And Full House, oh my gosh, in the streets of San Francisco, and Uncle Jesse, oh my God, oh, so hot. He's still hot, Uncle Jesse. And, I grew up, watching this on TV, mesmerized. So me moving here, it was like, I've always wanted.
You were excited.
It was so weird because even as a little 9-year-old girl, I always knew that I was going to end up in LA. It's weird. My sister and I would play like make believe, and we would play that we were sisters living in LA, that we would speak English and we would speak gibberish to each other. But like in our mind, we pretend.
You're speaking English.
We would pretend that we lived in LA and we were like going to Bayside High.
I love it. This is a true American dream story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, it gets better. So one day, we were in the my dad was in the restaurant. This lady walked in and said, "Oh, your restaurant and your family." He's like, "Yeah, my family's coming from LA, from Oaxaca. They're going to move here very soon." And then she said, "Well, where are they going to go to school?" And he's like, I don't know, wherever, the corner. She's like, "Your kids cannot go to school in this neighborhood. Like, no way. They're going to become cholos. Your daughters are going to get pregnant." Like, scared my dad. And she said, "My kid goes to school in a great charter school, public school in Palisades. I don't know if you know where Palisades is." And he's like, "No, I don't know." And he's like, "Just come here to the meeting. It's a charter school, so they need to meet a quota of ESL kids.
Right.
And we don't have a lot of kids that want to drive all the way over there."
Right. So Pacific Palisades over by Santa Monica. Like
Pacific Palisades.
The ritziest
Hold
part
up,
of
where they actually filmed Bayside High.
Exactly.
All
That's
your
where
dreams
that's
are
where they
coming true.
saved. This was where like the Saved by the Bell movie
So it's
was
all
filmed.
starting to come true.
And all of a sudden, like, I'm living my dream, being
Where's
in,
Uncle Jesse? You still haven't met Uncle Jesse.
AC Slater on the beach.
I've met AC Slater, which was crazy because I was like, wow, I haven't met Uncle Jesse yet, but one day I will. So yeah, it was like a full circle moment. My mom would drive every single day to and from Palisades for us to go to school there. She'd stay in the area, clean homes, pick us up after she was done cleaning homes. Then we'd drive to the restaurant. She would work in the restaurant in the evening, close the restaurant, come back and do the same thing 7 days a week.
Your mom's amazing.
Yeah, my dad's incredible. My mom's incredible because even though the restaurant was making money, like it would make more sense for her to stay there and make money as a housekeeper than for her to drive back to the restaurant
Time
and
is
come
money.
back. So she would just stay there and then work in the restaurant in the evening. And then Saturday and Sunday, all of us work in the restaurant full time. And then, that's just how we got here.
That's pretty amazing.
I know.
Do you find that things in life for you, things you think about and focus on, like come to reality for you? Because it was almost like you channeled this whole experience.
I mean,
does that happen a lot?
I haven't married Uncle Jesse. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm happily married. I'm just kidding. My husband's going to listen to this and be like, "What?" I'm just kidding. I mean, I think that there are certain things in my life that I definitely have will to power for sure. Yeah. Things that I've always like dreamed
Manifesting.
of. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
You do that. That's pretty amazing.
We haven't even said yet, John,
Well, wait,
what the ingredient is.
Well,
for this
yeah. We'll just keep going.
I
'cause
told y'all
want-
I can talk forever.
Well,
That's what
no,
I do for a living.
We'll get into it. So, what was the name of the restaurant that your dad
So my dad
opened?
started the restaurant. The restaurant's called Guelaguetza.
Guelaguetza.
It's a big word, Guelaguetza.
What does it mean?
Guelaguetza has 3 different meanings. So at its core, the actual word, the Zapotec word, the direct translation per se, if you looked at it in a dictionary, means reciprocity and community. Like the act of giving and creating community with one another. The act of not being able to survive without each other. That is what the actual word means. Then the second translation is a festival that happens in Oaxaca in July. That's called Lunes del Cerro, Monday in the Hill, which is the Guelaguetza, which is when all of the small towns in Oaxaca gather in the city and share their culture through dance, through food, through festival. On these Mondays specifically, and there's a big actual stage and thousands of people gather and they see these towns express your culture through dance and food, and it's amazing.
So
and
you
it's
like
a
go
4
to
hour.
the Guelaguetza?
You go to the Guelaguetza. Nice. Yeah, it's in July. It's crazy time in Oaxaca. A lot of people, but it's so much fun. I think the only close thing that I could refer it to, just to kind of put it in people's minds, would be like Mardi Gras or
like Carnival
in Brazil. But very different, but I think it's the same essence of magnitude. And then the third, it's actually a tradition that happens in Mexico, still in Oaxaca and towns, to where someone has like their Guelaguetza book, right? And it's, my mom showed it to me, my grandma's book, and it's like pretty much like, you know, so-and-so got married and I gave them, you know, 2 sacks of beans or 3 chickens and a goat. And then you have your book. So then when you're in need of something, you go and you're like, hey, you know, here's the Guelaguetza I gave to your daughter. And they come and like, oh, amazing. Take, you know, 2 chickens or whatever. Or I can offer you this for you to celebrate your, whether it be wedding or baptism or death, because, you know, in Oaxaca, death is celebrated. So it's a tradition of act of giving and receiving. It's creating community, but it's also this festival. And now it's a restaurant in LA.
That's pretty amazing. Let's talk about, we could talk for hours with you.
But
I could tell already.
All that to say that when we took over the restaurant, I run the restaurant with my sister and my brother. It's still a family-owned restaurant. Imagine being, okay, number one, my name is Bricia. So that in itself, I need to, you know, I always stop and tell people, BRICIA. Now imagine like Bricia at theguelaguetza.com.
Yeah.
That was the worst email to have forever. So we changed our website. So our website now is ilovemole.com, where you can just go there and find everything.
It makes it very easy.
The perfect segue.
Let's talk about Oaxacan cuisine for a sec. So this is like the, you know, what I would probably consider like the most historic cuisine in Mexico. Am I saying that right? In that region?
Yeah, I think I always describe it as the essence of everything and the basis of Mexican cooking. Like without Oaxaca, there is no Mexican gastronomy, because we are the foundation of the Mexican cuisine, Mexican cooking. It's today has become a rite of passage for any chef, not just in Mexico, but I think all over the world, to understand and live Oaxaca. But alongside Oaxaca, I think there's Yucatan that has incredible, one of my favorite gastronomies in Mexico, and you have Puebla. So I think between Oaxaca, Puebla, and Yucatan, I think I would consider that like the holy trinity of Mexican cooking and Mexican cuisine, and that everything is built up from there.
All right, talk to us a little bit about what makes Oaxacan cuisine Oaxacan. Like, are there certain ingredients? Obviously, mole is very important to that. What makes Oaxacan cuisine special?
Yeah, I think when people think of Oaxaca, I think of mole, right? But I think if you're from Puebla, you're also like, yo, we invented mole, and it's like Oaxaca's like, no, we did. So
There's like this little kind of battle.
well, it's like a battle. It's
not a
more
battle,
like,
but like-
it's more like
You both take ownership.
yes, we both take ownership of mole, with rightfully so. Yeah. But I think what makes Oaxacan food Oaxacan is our use of outdoor fire cooking and our versatility of smoking everything. And when I mean smoking everything, I don't mean like in the essence of let me smoke a brisket. It's not like that, but it's this ability to work with fire, and everything is very open fire cooking in Oaxaca, and everything has that hint of smoke without it having to be smoked. I don't know if I'm making any making sense, but you can see it in all our cooking. You can taste it in our salsas. You can taste it in our mole. That's why Oaxacan mole is so different than Puebla. Our mole has like this smoky taste that you really can pinpoint what it is. Or drink, right? Mezcal has a smoky taste that you're like, what is this? Our salsas have this roasting flavor. And I think that more so than smoking, it's roasted, right? Like it's a roasted agave, not a smoky tequila. It is a roasted mole rather than a smoky mole. But this essence of, like, I remember growing up, and every woman in my grandmother's town, my grandma herself, her hair would just smell of smoked chiles. Like it would just, this smell just penetrates. And we, last time I was in Oaxaca, we went to, there's an incredible chef, her name is Talia, in Oaxaca, and she has this cocina de humo experience. And you can sit there and watch her and her team cook the way that I would watch my grandma and her sisters cook. But you sort of recreate this moment in your life, and it is probably one of the best meals you've ever had in your life, but it's very simple. It's just tomatoes, chiles, eggs, maybe mushrooms, maybe not, and corn. That's really all there is. But it is the most, you will remember that meal for the rest of your life. But you will also walk out and like everything will smell like smoke.
Like going to like a campfire?
Yes, but it's a different type. It's so weird because it's a different smell. I think for some, and it's not the wood. I don't know. I don't think it's the wood. I think it's just what's being cooked in open fire, and then just being able to see that you don't need anything else but the ability to create a wonderful composition using the best ingredients. And even though a lot of people talk about that today, but you don't see, I think Oaxaca does it at its finest. Because I think that when you go to Oaxaca, you'll see that the superiority of ingredients that is found there is beyond anything else, based on the location of the place, based on the microclimates that you find, the hills, the mountains, we have a beach. We have so many different microclimates. So there's a region that you would find the best chiles, another one where you will find the best beans, another one where you will find, there's a stick that you find in the Sierra region that when you cook the beans, you put the stick in the pot of beans. It's a stick, and all it does is adds a hint of spiciness without being too spicy. So it seasons your beans, and it's just a stick.
It's a special type of stick?
Yeah, it's a stick.
Where does it come from, a special tree or?
Yeah, it's like a stick that you find in the Sierra, and that's what they do. They just put the stick, and then they cook their beans with it, and like you eat these beans and you're like, what is this? And it's like, oh yeah, it's a stick.
All right, now was your dad bringing those sticks to LA or no?
No,
just curious.
We haven't bought those sticks, but I think that's probably one of the next things that I'm probably going to do next year. I'm always trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, it's a subtle difference between the beans there and the beans here might be the stick.
Well, it's just a specific region.
Yeah.
But for avocado leaves, for example, we bring those ground avocado leaves, and we use that in our beans at the restaurant. And I think people go to the restaurant, they taste their beans and don't understand what it is about the beans. I'm like, it's just avocado leaves. That really is what the flavor comes from.
I mean, and if you talk about, and there's obviously not in Oaxaca, but like Mexico City today also is like culinary capital of the world.
Yeah, Mexico City is
Michelin
beyond.
stars and, the restaurants that are happening there. I mean, it's really, again, going back to the period when your parents came to the United States and you came to the United States, no one was looking at Mexico as, yes, delicious food, but not fine dining and
Correct.
Culinary fine dining. And to me, one of the most interesting things to see in the last decade is like this elevated level of, what Enrique Alvarez is doing. And there's restaurants in New York, like Cosme became very popular in tons of places. Here in California that just, I think of Taco Maria down in Orange County too, where it's like you're going to this experience and you're like blown away.
There's a Damian in downtown LA.
Blown away, yeah. So I think it's really something that it's one of the biggest culinary shifts or things that's happened in the last decade is just how amazing and how elevated Mexican cuisine is.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I kind of go back and forth with this whole like idea of elevated cuisine, right? Because I think that what Talia is doing is very elevated, right?
Sure.
I think walking into someone's home they have nothing and they create the best meal is very elevated. I think what they've done, chefs like Enrique Olvera, like Carlos, like so many chefs in Mexico that I've done. Pablo Salas, one of my favorite Mexican chefs. They have translated into what fine dining is. And I think it's a fine dining experience that people seek, right? Because obviously you're not going to get fine dining in a grandma's home, right? You get very elevated food, but you don't get fine dining. So I do like to make that difference because I don't like to diminish those other ways of cooking as not being elevated. I think the fine dining experience, though, anyone that loves to eat, and I think that is why European cooking has been put in a pedestal, is because there's so many fine dining experiences that you can find there.
They've made it luxurious.
Correct.
I love rustic personally.
Yeah.
I'd rather sit in
but
grandma's.
I love also like dressing up and getting the service and like getting like Mexico City would outdo any European restaurant in terms of service. Like you go to Mexico City and you will get the best service, the best like anything that you want. As far as service and the way they do it is amazing. When they're doing fine dining in Mexico, it's on par to anything else that you would find all over anywhere in the world. So I think that what's happening is that now people are seeking these experiences and they're realizing that, oh my gosh, this was in Mexico all along. And now more and more chefs are now creating more fine dining experiences. And it's incredible to see. It's incredible to see it unfold. And I love the idea that now people are traveling more to these regions of Mexico than they are in other places of the world.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Well, I think that it's about time.
Go ahead,
I'm
Andrea.
ready.
I know you were waiting.
I've been
I specialize in cutting Andrea off. I know she's ready to go with
She's
this.
like, let's go back to
Let's
business,
go.
guys.
She's ready to slap
we're
me
here
before.
to talk about something very special that I read a lot about before coming here today.
She's like, I did my research. You're not letting me speak.
I want to talk about mole.
Let's talk about mole.
So, I mean, in Oaxaca, they say there's 7 moles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess tell me a little bit about how that translates for you,
Mm-hmm.
how you're kind of created it here, and what mole means, I guess, to the Oaxacan community.
Can we even back up a little bit to tell us what is mole? Because we have a lot of people who listen who don't even know what mole is.
The literal translation. Bricia, tell us.
I don't know what the little translation is. It
means sauce.
Sauce?
Yeah.
It means sauce.
It's un mole. It's a sauce that is made with chiles and spices. And it is in a recipe that really brings the new world and the old world together to create something new. And that's what mole is, right? It was born out of migration between different parts of the world into the indigenous communities, specifically in Oaxaca. And mole is made. Okay, here's what I don't like people to take away. Okay, mole is not a chocolate sauce. No. Okay, that's number one. So for any of you out there who are looking at mole like, oh, that's a chocolate sauce. No. We season our mole with a little bit of chocolate, yes, for balance, just like you would in a marinara sauce. You would put a little honey, maybe brown sugar. It's not called a honey sauce.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
No one thinks of it as that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So no, it's not a chocolate sauce. It is made with different chiles that are cooked in different ways. Could be fried, could be roasted, and then it's combined with spices like almonds and cinnamon and cumin and garlic and onion and plantains and fruits, and from at that point on, it's whatever that your family does it as. I will never cook your grandma's mole because she is not my grandma. I cook my family's recipe, and I'm not trying to emulate your family's recipe.
Is your
Yeah.
family's recipe handed down written orally? How do you know your grandmother's mole recipe?
Well, I think it's ever evolving, right? I think now our mole recipe, you can find it in our book. We have a cookbook. It's called Oaxaca. And our recipes there, and we wanted to make sure that when I set out to make this book, I wanted to become part of our family's vault of memories. I wanted to make sure that when my child cooks from this book, understand that this was his grandmother's recipes. And when my grandchildren are looking for a recipe, they go back to this book and say, this was my great grandmother's recipe, and so on. So I wanted to make sure that whatever we put in there was our family's for the sake of my own family, but I wanted to share it with the world. So ours is very much there for people to see. It's an open source. It's open AI or open source code. So anybody can then modify it and make it their own. So mole is a sauce that you can enjoy in many forms. You can, in the most traditional way that you find it all over Oaxaca and towns. It's either in weddings or in funerals, and it is just plain old chicken with mole on top and rice on the side. That's the base. Then the step above that is when you leave this party, right? Everyone leaves with a tub of mole and chicken. So naturally you make tamales and they're wrapped in banana leaf. So that's sort of the two most traditional ways to find mole. Those are and maybe enchiladas, but we call them enmoladas as opposed to enchiladas. And those are the three ways that we make mole at Guelaguetza today. We are very much cooking the food that my dad grew up eating. And the idea that my son is eating the same way that my dad was eating when he was 7 years old, for me, is very, very important to maintain those traditions.
You talked about going to the Guelaguetza. I read that people say, I'm going to a mole. Is that true?
I haven't heard anyone saying that.
Like they say it's like a celebration or like almost like a wedding. I read.
Well, when you're going to a wedding, you know you're gonna get mole in Oaxaca. Okay. That's like a base. It's like, and you're not only going, but like you're walking out with a liter of mole.
Got it.
On your way out.
So now I fact check myself. Not true. Got it. Okay.
How much difference is there in one family's mole to another family's? Is it subtle or is it like...
It depends on the region.
And do you walk out of that wedding and go, oh, their mole was incredible at this? Yeah. You kind of...
100%. Or you're like,
they need to work
better
on that mole.
Yeah, you're kind of like, the mole wasn't that great.
No, but it's like my grandmother's tomato sauce, right?
Sure.
Or like my other grandmother's matzo ball soup.
Yeah.
Like these are things that you grow up on. Like, I mean, we were talking about In-N-Out Burger. Even like something like that where like I'm from the East Coast.
So
like,
you don't get it?
I don't get it. I'm sorry.
Start fighting words in this office,
I know,
girl.
I'm sorry. It's really about the French fry for me, but that's another day.
Just add salt. That's what they give you, salt on the side.
All right. Fair. I don't know. I just think like that's probably, I think mole is in that category.
Sure. I have 100%.
Yeah. So or sometimes you get like, that's how you impress people. You know, when people go and then someone wants seconds of your mole, you're like, oh, that was like, who made this? You know, like, whoa, it's a way to impress people at a party for sure.
Will a woman court a man with the quality of her mole?
I mean, how do you know I landed? How can I tell you that's how I landed my husband?
Is that true? Okay,
yes.
There you go.
That's how you can, yes.
What kind of mole is your mole?
We cook mole from the valley region of Oaxaca.
Okay.
Yeah. So, which is very different. So what I sell though are mole starters. I know we're talking about an ingredient. I think we're probably one of the first families that are treating mole as an ingredient because mole is a dish, right? And I know this podcast is about ingredients. And when we sought to, bring, my brother and I had a very, what's the word I'm looking for? I'll think about it. This idea of, okay, let's bring mole to the pantries in the US, right? Naive idea of like, oh yeah, that should be easy to do. It's not. So just
drive a truck up over the border, it'll be fine.
Yeah. This naive idea that we can get, and we try every day. With what we do is to bring a bag of mole starters to every pantry and for it to be treated as an ingredient because I don't want to limit people to only think of mole as something that I just described, as something that you just as a sauce, right? So if you go on our website and look in recipes, we have so many different recipes that you can use your starters as marinades, as bases. It's basically a beautiful rendition of smoked chiles with spices that can be used in so many other different ways, more like tomato paste that you can use in many different ways. You can also use mole starter as an ingredient to something delicious. So we have a lot of baked recipes that are baking recipes, a lot of stews, a lot of roasting, a lot of grilling recipes that allows people to think of mole beyond of just, the dish itself. Just chicken with rice,
Amazing. Yeah. You're also now making these beautiful micheladas, these mixes for a nice cerveza with... Talk to us about micheladas.
Micheladas, I'll tell you how the business got started. So we were running the restaurant. We had just launched our little online store. We've had our Shopify store for a long time, selling our moles. And we would sell like 2 jars a day, just very, very, very small. And we were trying to figure out what else can we sell. And then one day a guy came into the restaurant and wanted to buy our michelada mix to go. And we couldn't understand. At that moment, I was like, I don't understand what you mean. I can't sell michelada to go. It's like, oh, I don't want a michelada to go. I just want your mix. I'm going to have a party. I'm going to have friends over. And you have the best mix I've ever tasted. And I don't want to have to make these micheladas from scratch, because it's difficult. Not difficult, but tedious.
Did the light bulb go off in that moment?
I always thought michelada was just like a splash of tomato juice and a little bit of lemon in the beer. But
no.
You're killing her, John.
That's my naivete myself.
And this is like the new journey that we embarked on because I went to a food convention earlier this year, and I saw this booth that was selling a michelada mix. So I went over there and I asked the guy, I was like, so what's make this a michelada? Like, what is this mix? How do you make this michelada? It's like, oh, we're like, really? It's just like a Bloody Mary mix, but michelada's kind of hot right now. So we're just rebranding it as michelada.
Oh.
And like,
wow.
I started my eyes started twitching.
Yeah.
I was so angry.
Got you in your soul.
Yeah.
Especially because this guy wasn't like Latino.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was just like, what do you do?
Right.
Some dude from Texas. And I was like, why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, there's many other things you can do with your life.
Right.
Do not ruin this for us. So I think that's what gives things the bad rep is a lot of companies right now, what they're doing is going to Bloody Mary mix, private labelers, really. What are the commissaries? Not the commissaries. What are they called?
Like a third-party packer. I'm trying to think
co-packer. Sorry, co-packer. They'll go to a Bloody Mary co-packer. They'll say, yeah, just give me the best, recipe that you can think of, and then just add maybe a little spice. And then
here's my label.
And then here's my label, here's my brand, and like let's launch this as a michelada. Right. And what's doing that is just hurting everyone because people drink it and they're like, ugh, I hate micheladas. And like that's disgusting. I don't want a tomato beer, right? Which is it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be able to taste a tomato. What a michelada does is enhances the beer taste with like a hint of spices, umami, and you're able to just enjoy a beer with just a little bit of umami in it with like spice and citrus and everything that you want in salt, right? Salt, it adds acidity, it adds saltiness, and it adds spice without having to have any other flavor come through other than the umami of the beer.
So you're having great success. This product is now available. It's called I Love Micheladas, and it's a mix in a bottle, and it's available at places like Costco.
Southern California, Costco stuff now. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Wow, this is a great story.
And it started this year?
No. We've had it for a while, but we've never really, I think that we really focused on it and say, hey, like, let's take this serious. Let's put more focus on this in the last 4 years, I would say. And yeah, we have a lot of grocery partners and it's really exciting. I mean, winter season is always a little bit in the slow side for us because, we're trying to change that. We're trying to make sure that let people know that you can have the micheladas all year round. It doesn't have to be a seasonal thing. It's enjoyed Oh, I didn't think I finished the story. Okay. So this guy came to the restaurant. He said he wanted to buy a mix. Then we went to the bar. We found an old bottle. I think it was a tequila bottle. We filled it up. We handed it over to him and we were like, he's like, how much do I owe you? And I was like, I don't know, $20. I didn't know how much to charge for it. And he just gave us the money and we're like, wow, we can sell this?
Business,
I'm like, we can sell this stuff? People can buy this? So that's how the business started.
That's very cool. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Your parents are still in Los Angeles?
No, my parents retired about 8 years ago. And
Where are they?
They're in Oaxaca.
Did they always want to go back? Like,
I think that every immigrant that comes in their midlife, quarter life, 30. My dad moved to LA when he was 30. And I think anyone who moves to any country at that part of their life will never feel at home because of many, many reasons, right? For my dad, the US was a wonderful place that allowed for his dreams to come true, but also a place that demanded so much of him. It was just constant work. My dad, I didn't finish the story, but my dad, at the end of his career, I would say, he took on so much. He did not have the financial literacy, nor the financial tools, nor the people around him that would help him build a business. It was all the way around. So my father started losing everything he had to declare bankruptcy with my mom, sold all of his business. And the only place that was left was the restaurant. He was so close to closing that. And then us as the siblings came together and we kind of created like a structure that we could then buy the business from my parents out of bankruptcy, get together and ran the business from like negative, from like a place where it was like losing money. We couldn't make payroll, but my parents left at that moment. They retired. Now they live in Oaxaca. And that's when I think, a lot of people ask us like, how was that, transfer of power between the old generation and the second generation? And I would say because my parents weren't involved. When we took it over, when we were running the thing from beginning to end, they weren't there. They let us be what it was. They moved and they allowed us to be us, and trusted us. And that's what we've done. And now they're retired. My dad has a little ranch there. He has goats and turkeys, and my mom cooks every day. And, they live a very happy, simple life.
Sounds very happy. And they must be so proud of you and your siblings.
I think so. Yeah.
Is all of your brothers and sisters involved in the business?
So we're 4. Our youngest sister isn't. My youngest sister works for Apple and she loves her corporate life. And sometimes I envy her.
That's fun.
We ask every guest on the podcast, and you obviously love cooking.
This is going to be a good one.
I'm so excited.
Do you cook at home a lot? Well, what we didn't talk
weekends.
about, you're a mom
weekends.
too. She's got a podcast called Super
Mamas with your sister, right?
Yes.
So I think Andrea's question is going to be, I can't wait to hear this question and answer.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Quesadillas. That's what I make the most at home.
No,
I'm not even
going to
lie.
go to your house and open your pantry.
Mm-hmm.
What are the 5 things I will always find?
I have a really nice pantry. Oh my gosh. Vinegars. All kinds of vinegars. Number 1, I always tell people, you need to have at least 4 nice vinegars. They will change.
Yep.
Game changer.
Acid is huge.
I'm with you.
People don't realize the brightness that acid brings to a dish.
I'm like, that's when I went to my sister's house, like, but where are you? Like, why?
Yes.
What? Apple cider? That's all you got? No.
Okay, so vinegars.
It's oils like a thing. I also I always tell people, do not. The amount of people that get like shocked when I tell them like don't fry stuff with your olive oil. Like people get like shocked to this day. I'm like, why? No, olive oil isn't like to cook. Salts. I'm huge on salts.
Okay.
Love salts. Salts are my life. Chiles, dry chiles. I have a lot of dry chiles at home. Guajillo, pasilla I'm from Oaxaca, so like I'm a little different, but like chile pasilla from Oaxaca and like amorita and árbol, those 4, you can just create.
And those
so
are
many
all
salsas.
Dry chiles. We actually sell a lot of those at the Chef's Warehouse.
So guajillo, pasilla, morita, and árbol, those 4, you can make an abundance of things that you can find.
Yeah.
Like nuts. I love all types of like nuts. Can also serve as snacks for the kids. And it's healthy, it's fatty, nuts with like yogurt, you're done. Like that's a whole meal. I don't have to worry that you're going to be hungry later. And like I fed you good protein on the quick. Hazelnuts are my favorite.
Me too.
Love hazelnuts.
Well, this has been
awesome.
So fun. I love being in this warehouse. I just like being here in like East LA in the warehouse.
You're legit now.
Yeah, totally.
I love micheladas.com. I love molded.com at Bricia Lopez on Instagram.
Oh, thank you very much. I don't even need this job anymore. Thanks, Bricia.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
What an exciting conversation we're about to have, Andrea. We've got Krissy Scommegna and Nacho Flores from the Boonville Barn Collective out in Boonville, California, one of the places we truly love up in Mendocino County.
Twice in one season, we have Krissy on. Very exciting.
Whenever we talk about peppers, we got to have these
We have
guys
to call
on.
Krissy. I mean, she's the go-to pepper aficionado.
So we're excited to talk to you guys. Welcome. What is it about mole? What are the peppers that are used? Just talk to us.
That's all you, Nacho.
Well, mole. Ooh. That's the real deal. When I first discovered mole, was back in my town in Mexico. I was probably 8-9 years old. And I was the little kid that was always fatty. I always was overweight.
You were a chubby little kid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
every time that one of my aunts or my grandma cooked mole, I was like always looking to go over and get some dish, a full plate. And man, it's indescribable. The first time I saw my grandma making mole from scratch. My mom used to have the blender to all the chilies and make the mole, but my grandma used to have this big, I don't know how.
Like a mortar and pestle?
Yeah, it was a huge one. So she was like doing all give me the cloves, give me the pepper, give me the anchos, and give me guajillos, and it took like 2-3 hours to make mole. So it was wild, and all these flavors, all these aromas that come up with my grandma kitchen. So that's when oh my God.
Mole is in your DNA. It is something you grew up with.
Yeah, and the old ladies used to have, when they used to have mole, it was made out of turkey. So the new generation, like my mom, they started using chicken. So it was a big jump. And I remember that I used to have a buddy rooster. Was Colorado his name. And my mom decided to make her mole.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's for real. And I find out that when I was eating it. It was in Colorado. Yeah, it was in Colorado.
Were you looking for your
Where's Colorado?
You're like, where's Buddy?
Yeah, it was in Colorado. Where's Colorado?
Yeah.
Mole?
He was in your belly.
Yeah, he was turning really gracefully, so they start. Had to make mole.
Well, I hope it was good.
It was delicious.
Yeah,
It was delicious. So the thing probably was all the peppers, John. They were fresh. They were not old. They were right. When they dry them, they probably dry them in the right way. They don't dry them fast, or they don't dry them aggressively. So they probably, it was fresh. Everything was fresh. The spices and everything.
So that's interesting. So the peppers are grown fresh but they are dried, but they weren't, it's not like they went through a big commercial process of drying.
No.
And they weren't sitting around for 5 years in a plastic bag. At Boonville Barn Collective, where you guys grow all of these peppers, what are you doing differently? How do you dry the peppers? I mean, and we know you grow these things in such a beautiful manner and they come out amazing, but is there how do you actually, do they dry on the plant or they go into an oven? How does that work?
Do you want to talk about it?
Okay.
So one thing that we're doing differently is that we leave the chilies on the plants to fully ripen. We're not pulling chilies off that are green and letting them ripen in a greenhouse, or like push them to ripen at a rate that they're not ready for. So it's May. We're planning on getting chilies planted in the next week or so. And we won't harvest any of the chilies really for our whole dried chilies until end of October, early November, because we want them to fully develop all of their flavors on the plants. So once they're fully ripe on the plants, we bring them into our greenhouse and let them sit for a bit to really mature their flavors. And And then we dry them in a big dehydrator, but it's not a super high temperature. It's a lower, slower heat to really like slowly pull the moisture out of them and retain the flavor, so you're not burning them in any way. In order for them to, number one, be like fully dried out, and to try to retain as much flavor and like the chili oils that are in those peppers as possible. And then we were looking at our list of inventory, and last year we produced about like 600 pounds of whole dried chilies, and we have about like 150 pounds left. And so the fact that we're able to sell everything within the year means that the chilies that people get from us are really fresh. And even if they're not using a full bag of chilies or like whatever they order, like within a year that they get it from us, for the next like 3 years, those chilies will still be very fresh compared to like what you're getting at the store, which has no information about how old they are when they were harvested. And so like having some kind of connection to the farmer or the company you're getting them from to know when they were actually harvested and like what that process is really important to make sure to have a very flavorful chili.
Yeah, I think that's it. Go ahead, Andrea.
I was going to ask about shelf life, because you're talking about this freshness. So, you know, is it a year? And you just said 3 years, which to me sounds kind of long, but I'm assuming if you're drying it the right way, then 3 years isn't a long time?
I mean, with any kind of spice or anything, it's not going to go bad. It's just going to slowly lose its flavor over time. And that's why, like, when you buy something, you want to know that, like, that is as fresh as possible when you're getting it. And, like, we harvest date, like, the year on when our whole chilies were harvested, so people know, like, how old it was or how fresh it was to begin with. But, yeah, like, the whole dried chilies, they're still good for, like, at least a few years.
Yeah, well, it pretty much depends how do you store it in your home. Yeah. I mean, dry peppers don't like moisture or heavy light. You keep it in a dry, dark area, you pretty much have it for 3 or 4 years probably.
And if you live in like a more humid climate, it's really important to put them in like a really tight sealing jar. I had some bags of whole dried chilies from the farm that I had in our pantry, and they weren't sealed all the way. And like after a rainy winter, I went to use them, and they were really soft and moist and like not really flavorful anymore because like they had lost all of their flavor to the moisture in the air.
You're stretching and pulling, and you pretty much lose. You still have the nice color, but you lose some of the flavor.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nacho, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into farming, how you got connected, to Krissy and her family in the Anderson Valley.
Well, I born as a farmer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I started working with Roger, which is Krissy dad. I think it was 2000. Well, it was really wild back then. 2003, we planted a vineyard for him. 2003, and I started taking care of his vineyard, taking care of his olive orchard, and they decided to start growing peppers. They asked me if I can grow peppers. Like, yeah, Mexican can grow peppers. So here we are, growing peppers. We started really small. I thought, oh, what's going on with this gringo? He got something growing. He has growing peppers. No one wants to buy peppers here. And here we are.
We're doing okay. 12 years later, going into our 12th growing season. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah. And I was looking online. It looks like you even have a mole kit now that you're selling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's Nacho's wife's recipe for her chicken mole in there. So it's a really, really special bundle.
Yeah.
What comes in that?
So there's a bag of Espelette chilies, cascabel, anchos, and mulattoes, a disc of Mexican chocolate, and then some of the other spices that you need, including bay leaves, cloves, allspice, black peppercorns, cinnamon, cloves, and then a really beautiful recipe card for making the mole, so you know what to do. That sounds so special. Yeah.
Where is Gideon? Is my first question.
That was going to be my first question.
He's always,
is he in the room?
He's always fun to have around.
Gideon's down at the office right now. We decided to record this at my house for quieter background sounds.
And then my next, I don't know when I'm coming to Boonville again. I was thinking it was going to be in June, but I'm not going to make it. I would love to have you guys make me mole because I want to taste that secret grandma's recipe, Nacho.
Absolutely.
Happy to.
Is it ever made at the hotel using the?
I don't think so. No, Perry doesn't really cook it at the hotel. He uses a lot of our whole guajillo chilies and different like chili sauces. And he really likes those. But I don't think they've made it at the hotel in a while, if ever.
I think you need mole night, like you do the paella night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you'll just have to come to one of our houses for it and make it a little bit more special.
I'm in.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Nacho Flores. Thank you, Krissy Scommegna, Boonville Barn Collective. This has been such an awesome conversation. I have personally learned a lot about mole and all about the peppers that you guys are growing out there. What a treat. Thank you again.
If you want to purchase the Pimentaville, the California Espelette, chefswarehouse.com. And for the mole kit, you can go to Boonville Barn Collective's website to purchase that. Thank you so much for being on again.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us,
guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Ingredient Insiders. Subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Ingredient Insiders. You can find the products we discussed in today's episode and more at chefswarehouse.com or your favorite specialty retailer.